everyone, it's Julianne here with another card making video. This Florida girl is in New Hampshire today teaching a class on how to make these snowflake cards, and I wanted to bring them to you all as well. For all three of my cards today, I'm going to be using multiple Tailored Expressions products, including the Snowflake Stencil, 3 of the Simple Strips background stamp sets, which are the Christmas, the background, and the birthday. And for my ink blending, I'm going to be using Distress Oxide inks, including the Tumbled Glass, Salty Ocean, Mermaid Lagoon, Peacock Feathers, and Wilted Violet. So let's just jump right in and get started. I'm going to start out my first card ink blending the Snowflake Stencil onto some Tim Holtz Distressed watercolor paper using Tumbled Glass, Salty Ocean, and Mermaid Lagoon. Sorry for the fur ball you just saw walking across the screen. That's our new mini Australian Shepherd, Mona, and she just loves coming to be crafty with her mom. I'm going to continue the ink blending process all throughout my stencil. I started with Tumbled Glass in the left-hand corner, and then moving on to Salty Ocean, going back to the Tumbled Glass to just smooth out my blending, and finally adding the Mermaid Lagoon to the bottom right. Once my ink blending is done, I'm going to remove the stencil and place that background off to the side. Now that I've cleaned off my stencil, I'm going to move on to the next color combination. Again, I'm using that Tim Holtz Distressed watercolor paper, and I've cut down all 3 of these sheets to just under an A2 size card, just so I can add a border later on in the video. For this color combination, I'm going to be using Peacock Feathers, and then I'm going to add the Wilted Violet in the center, and then finally adding the Mermaid Lagoon down in the right hand corner. Once I have that first initial layer of color, I am going to go back in with the Wilted Violet and the Peacock Feathers and just kind of smooth out my blending line before moving on. For my third and final snowflake, I'm just going to be using Peacock Feathers and Wilted Violet. Once I have that first layer of color down, I'm just going to go back in with my Peacock Feathers and smooth out my blending. Once I'm done with all my ink blending, I'm going to move on to the next step, which is going to be applying the embossing paste. To make each one of my cards unique, I did offset the Snowflake Stencil differently each time. So before applying the Dreamweaver Pearlescent embossing paste, I just want to make sure I have my stencil lined back up. That way, the paste is only going on the portion that has been ink blended. To save some time in the video, I'm only going to be applying the embossing paste to this one snowflake. You want to make sure you have an even coverage of the embossing paste before removing your stencil. At first, the embossing paste is going to look a little milky, but once you set those off to the side to dry, you're going to be left with some really beautiful shine. Next, I'm going to start working on my sentiments. Today, I'm going to be using the Simple Strips birthday stamp set as well as the coordinating dies. I'm going to be white heat embossing the sentiments today, so I'm starting out by stamping them with some Simon Says Stamps clear embossing ink onto some black colored cardstock. I am going to stamp the sentiments twice to make sure I get a really good impression before adding the embossing powder. Once I'm done with the heat embossing, I'm going to be using the Simple Strips die to cut the sentiments out. I love this die. It cuts out all 18 sentiments with just one pass through my big shot. Once I have all of my sentiments cut out and have decided which sentiments I want on which card, I'm just going to adhere them with some foam adhesive directly to my background. I like the look of the staggered sentiments, but you can add them however you like best. off camera, I adhered my snowflake backgrounds to some colored cardstock in teal, purple, and navy blue that I thought coordinated well with my snowflakes. Next, I'm going to take those backgrounds and adhere to my card bases using that same liquid adhesive. And finally, I'm just going to add some Studio Katia Icy Sparkle crystals to my cards to finish them off. I really hope you found some inspiration on stretching those Christmas supplies. And I can't wait till this Florida girl is back in some warm weather to bring you some more crafty videos. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave some comments down below, and happy crafting!